how do you balance, not just the physical toll that takes, but also the mental and emotional tolls of, just running around and doing so much?
Such a pertinent question and such an important question. And I think, as goes with our podcast between us, the most important story is the story you tell yourself. And I think that's what I do, is tell that most important story to me, which is, before you do anything, take care of yourself. Because before being a podcaster, storyteller, and the many different roles we have, there is that one human being, you, taking care of yourself, taking time out for yourself. My mornings are just reserved for me. There are no phone calls, there are no phone messages. I just don't entertain them. Those 2 hours could be for my yoga, for my reading, for my journaling, or for my walk or run. That's just me. I've learned this, Vedant, that sometimes it's important to take time out for yourself, and it's okay to be not okay.
Everything begins at the beginning, and quite often the beginning begins when you shift your mind in a new direction.
Look for the silver lining whenever a cloud appears in the blue.
Hey there, guys, and welcome to Between Us, Make Every Conversation Count. As you can obviously tell, I am not Santosh Kumar. The lack of beard kind of gives it away, I guess. I am Vedant Naik. I am a producer on the show, and I am the sultry voice behind the quotes that you hear at the beginning of every episode. And I'm filling in as host today because our guest is none other than Mr. Santosh Kumar himself.
Thank you, Vedant.
So, Santosh, this is your 25th episode. We're going to make it a little special. And I figured, you figured, the best way to go about it is for the audience to learn a little bit about you and what you're about.
Sure.
So the episode is going to be split a little bit between your backstory and a little bit about the future, not only for yourself and for the show as well. So with that, ready to dive in?
Absolutely.
All right, let's get into it.
Go for it.
So I guess the first question is, I'm sure you saw it coming a mile away. Why don't you tell us a little bit about, your backstory, where you came from, and how that impacted you in terms of who you are today?
First of all, thank you for filling in as the host.
My pleasure.
Those are large shoes to fill in, Vedant, but thank you again. But I was born and raised in Calcutta, now Kolkata. Although for us, it's still Calcutta. Calcutta is an emotion. And I think it's a city which is rich in traditions, books, music, arts. So I guess that I kind of inculcated that within me. Growing up, I was an introverted kid all the way until I was 16, and then everything changed after that. But I guess from reading books to journaling, and believe it or not, despite being an introvert on stage in my school, all of those things really impacted me, who I am over the last many, many years of my life. I've just been, I think, as they say, your home is your first school. Learning to write and read, listening to stories, they had a deep impact on me as a person, as a professional. I guess that's about what I can say right now.
And you said that you did stage work in school. What's the most vivid memory of when you were on stage?
Oh, my first play, this was, I think I was in my 4th grade. I was a Christmas tree all through the 2.5 hours of the play, just standing out there. And I remember my mom really getting worried, telling dad whether the kid would be standing. I was just standing like this with my hand, like a tree. And it was really funny. But when that opportunity came, my dad said he must be there as a Christmas tree. I guess that took away the stage fear. I think it was the Easter play a couple of years later. I played, believe it or not, Sherlock in The Merchant of Venice. And I think 2 years later, I played Bassanio, and then I played Antonio. I guess Merchant of Venice has been very close to my heart. And doing Shakespeare plays growing up, Uh, and believe it or not, I've even done that in Bengali. So that's my memories of and street theater during my undergrad days has been another sort of learning. We did a lot of family planning street plays.
Okay.
Just walking down the street, and I know I don't know if I can say it, but there would be quotes like "Hum do, hamare do." So it was like a family planning thing. Small family, happy family, and how you grow. I think those things really made a huge impact on me. I think some of the social causes which are very close to me today are primarily due to my theater days and school plays and stuff like that.
Nice. Well, a pound of flesh, right?
Yes, a pound of flesh.
Moving away, so that was your childhood,
Mhm.
the stage work and everything that you did and where you grew up. But after all that, of course, comes the adult part of life, which
Mhm.
is our work, our
Yeah.
careers. Why don't you tell me a little bit about your career? So you started, I guess, in India and then you moved to the US.
Yes, I started off in a company called Rediff.com, which was the .com version of Rediffusion DYNR.
My mom still has a Rediff email account.
I'm not that old, but and I'm sure that I had a Rediff mail account for a short while before I had a Hotmail account, and now it's an Outlook account. But I guess that was my first introduction to brands and stories. I remember sitting in a room talking about being in a room as an intern, and the company Max Touch was positioning itself and changing into orange. And I remember the tagline absolutely clearly: "The future is bright. The future is orange." Uh, I don't even remember how many people know about that, and that was my first introduction. Hindustan Levers, traveling to Pune to meet Bajaj, and just being a fly on the wall, watching my seniors making presentations, understanding about brands. But I realized that behind every brand, there's a story. And I somehow could connect it back to my growing up years. Those growing up years and my grandmom, especially my maternal grandmom, telling me stories. And I'm going back to that because somehow I feel whatever I am or whoever I am today as a host of a podcast and telling stories and sharing stories is because of those growing up years, because of those experiences. I think the feeling of community comes in when you grow up in a large family. I think I don't know why I just went back. I just wanted to share that. But yeah, coming back to my growing up years, that was my first stint, understanding brands, understanding the stories behind the brands, connecting with your audience, telling stories. What they want to hear, and some stories they should hear. Maybe they don't know about it.
Mhm.
So that had a deep impact on me.
And of course, you mentioned how you were a fly on the wall in a lot of business deals and everything like that while you were at Hindustan Levers.
Yeah.
So
While at Rediff, but Hindustan Lee was
while
being
at,
yeah.
right, of course. But I guess that is a very convenient segue into what I was going to ask you next, which is you've obviously seen when you were a young man, you saw how the older guys, the veterans, if you will, how they
Mhm.
were conducting business back in the day.
Mhm.
And of course, while you're not as old as I'm sure they were back then, you are of course much older than you were
Mhm.
then. So if you could take a time machine and go back and talk to yourself just as you're about to walk into that room and be a fly on the wall,
Mhm.
what advice would you give to that younger version of yourself?
I think I would I would tell the younger version of myself to be more patient, to be more mindful, to be more respectful of your seniors. I think it's probably cyclical. I don't know what. Every young man or woman today believes that they are much more smarter than um, the person next to you who's older than you. I wish I would tell myself learn to appreciate the experience. learn to inculcate and imbibe some of those values, because I would just sit out there and shake my legs and my hands and say, oh my god, I wish I had the opportunity to make this presentation. I would have probably kicked ass, I don't know. So yeah, that's an advice I would give.
But based on what you told me, I don't think your younger version would have listened to you either way.
Oh, absolutely not. No, I wouldn't have.
So either way, you would have wound up exactly where you are.
One of the things I would always say is that at the end of the day, Vedant, it'll all be well. And if it's not, then it's not the end.
Of course. And of course, one of the big things that make up our experience, whether it's in work or whether it's in life, is, of course, our time with success and failure.
Mm-hmm.
So I was wondering if you could tell me, what were some of the biggest failure, and not just the biggest failures in that you experienced in your work, but rather the biggest failures that yielded the biggest lessons that you took away with you.
I would probably respond to this differently. I feel that everything we do, which is defined as failure and success, are nothing but lessons, are nothing but learnings and experiences. I think the only time you fail is when you just don't do it. When you don't, there are times when you want to do certain things and you think you hold back because you feel maybe it will not succeed or it will not work. I think the only time you fail is when you don't do what you have to do.
Of course, like you said, with failures, there are lessons and, you have to do it. There's no two ways about it. But when you were going through your work or your podcast or your life, was there ever a moment in your life where you just kind of was like, you hit up on something and you had that epiphany that you just went Eureka and were like, this is something that's going to be special?
That's such a fantastic question. And the answer to that is the only ever Eureka moment in my life has been when I started Between Us. I think when I hit upon the idea of Between Us, we were sitting in a group, and one of my friends, she just texted me saying something she said, I can't recall now, but at the end she said BUS. And I just couldn't. I was like, "What the hell is this?" And I was just about to raise my hand, and I said, "What?" And she said, "Shh." And then she texted again saying, "It's Between Us." And I was sitting out there, and I was in split second, I said, "Okay, this is the title of my podcast." Why? Because Between Us is what I've been talking about. I was talking about stories that we tell ourselves first before we tell the world. And I think the Eureka moment was when I realized that this is the story I want to tell. I want to tell to everyone out there that stories are powerful, stories are personal, stories are important. But the most important story is the one we tell ourselves and how we tell those stories. It's that how part which was the Eureka moment for me. And I said, this is it. It's not just about the title. It's about the fact that somewhere out there, we don't tell those stories to the world. So every guest, and you've been a producer on our show, every guest out there who've come here, I've always asked them to share the stories they have told themselves before they started the journey. So that to me was the Eureka moment of my career.
So I guess we have this friend to thank for giving you the name for the podcast.
Yes.
And I'm just glad that she didn't text you BRB instead of BUS at this point.
Yes.
But, that is, of course, this epiphany that made you think, I'm going to start a podcast. But it sounded like, just from the way you were talking, that you already had this sort of thing that you wanted to do a podcast already in your head. You just didn't have the name for what you were going to do.
Not just the name. I didn't know what to talk because there were already podcasts. You and me, we have been, privy and witness to multiple podcasts. So I knew there were podcasts and I would listen to them, but I certainly didn't know what to do with my podcast. What is it that I'm going to talk about? What kind of stories I'm going to talk about? So I think to me that, and I know you might say that you already wanted to do a podcast. At that point in time, I was not even sure whether it's going to be a podcast. I thought I'll probably just write something. I didn't know. So I think the moment was, okay, this is how, and this is what I'm going to talk about. Probably that was the Eureka moment.
Understood. So you were kind of thinking maybe you'll do it as a book, but then the idea for a podcast.
Yes.
Interesting. And also, you know, you've done TED Talks before as well.
I'm going to deliver a TED Talk soon. Yes.
Fingers crossed for when that happens.
Yes.
But when you are invited
Mm-hmm.
to do a TED Talk, what do you think the topic would be?
I think, you know, it's such an important question. You know, Vedant, if you look at the world, there are so many things going on, and I think world around us, we've got wars, we've got economic inequalities, we've got challenges around gender, identity. But I think what people are missing out is probably the biggest existential threat, if I would say, is our planet. And climate change, if we don't really address it, and there have been so many talks about it, I think, and I think not just climate, but the way we live. To me, there is no climate justice without economic justice. So that is going to be the title of my TED Talk, which is coming up.
I would have figured it would be something around storytelling or the art of storytelling, since it is a discipline that has kept you engaged or has interested you in the past.
You know, Vedant, storytelling, I think what you and I are doing right now, we are actually sharing stories. I think the most powerful story today is climate. It is a story in itself. And sometimes we feel stories are fictional. No, I think stories are more powerful and more real than we can think of. And the story about climate, about planet, about our people, about upliftment of people's economic situation, I think it's the most powerful story. And I think, and I know where you're coming from, but I think it's not just about storytelling, it's about the kind of stories I want to tell. And I think our planet is one of the most powerful stories to be heard. And I think it's not enough for people to fly around the world and have conferences. It's about really walking the talk. And I think I wish I'm so happy to see young people, not as young as I am, but young people out there really talking about it. The climate strikes, which school kids go, and which is probably not appreciated or mocked at. I think those are needed. The awareness is still not there. Leading and living a sustainable life is so very important. So I think that's a very powerful story.
So it does sound like you believe that stories can be a tool for social empowerment.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look at the world today. Even in a country like United States, we still have so much of taboo. We still, I say, there's still a taboo, false narratives around who people can be with their social, with their sexual orientation, with their
Right.
identities,
Mhm.
right? So, and when you start telling stories about them, when these stories reach out, Harvey Milk, such a powerful story, right? So I think storytelling can really, really, bring about a huge change. I mean, look at some of the greatest leaders around the world. It's how they told their stories, what impacted the world we live in. From FDR to John F. Kennedy to Gandhi to Reagan to President Obama to our current Prime Minister, all of them, they're all telling powerful stories to bring about social changes. You and I may disagree with the way they tell their stories, but those stories are really making an impact.
That is true. But it is right that a lot of world leaders, business leaders,
Mhm.
they all turn to storytelling as a way to motivate, as a way to transform, as a way to engage with whether it is their employees or whether it is the world at large.
Mhm.
Storytelling is used by quite a few successful people.
Mhm.
And you mentioned just this raft of names
Mhm.
of very famous leaders, many of whom aren't around. But I
Sure.
was just curious, in your life,
Mhm.
has there ever been any one leader, and I'm
Mhm.
talking about someone you know personally,
Mhm.
who's who managed to tell a story that actually inspired you or motivated you to grow or change in any way?
I think my own grandmother. She got married when she was just 20, and and my grandfather passed away almost immediately, within 5 or 6 years of her marriage, and she was left with 4 kids. Um, and she raised all her 4 children, and she taught in a school,
Okay.
and she retired as the headmistress in the same school she studied. My grandfather was a teacher in that school when they met. Let's not get into the romance part
We
of
already
it.
had the Valentine's Day special.
Yes, and I think from her I learned a few very valuable lessons. One of them I would like to share. I was on vacation from Calcutta, and I went home. We are originally from Kerala, and I had gone home, and um, we were cousins together. And I remember, walking into the house, and my maternal aunts were out there, and I just removed my shirt or t-shirt, I don't recall that, and I just put it up out there, and I said, I told one of my aunts, like, just go ahead and wash it, and I'll just change. And my grandmom somehow saw it, and she asked me, what happened? uh, why don't you why didn't you do that in an organized way? And I said, well, that's their job. The aunts and my sisters, they will take care of that. And believe me, Vedant, this is a true story. For that entire month, my grandmom made me do every single household chores, and I was probably 9 or 10 years old at that time. She taught me the value of work, the value of all the things about gender and identity and roles we talk about. She taught me those things. She she had incentives to me, so I learned to knit, because every day during every vacation I would pick up new skills.
Okay.
Knitting, cooking. She taught me how to make chapatis. How do you make them? She taught me to knit. She taught me to do my laundry. She taught me how to clean your own room, not just the wardrobes and stuff, everything. And I think that incident where I just normalized by saying, my sisters will do it, my aunt will do it. She made me do that process. And I remember I was there for 30 days, and my aunt's going and telling my grandmom, why are you putting the kid through? He's just here for 30 days. And she said, no, it's important for him to learn. And I still have memories a little bit, and my aunts tell me that I was actually working literally. I remember telling my grandma when I'm leaving, this is child labor. You do understand, as I was leaving for the station. But apparently every night she would just sit by me when I was going off to sleep, having worked through the whole day, doing all the household chores. She would massage my legs. And next morning, she was that strict grandmom, strict parent. I learned a lot of I learned how she managed the family. She managed her, in those days, her professional life, and how she maintained her integrity. To me, she's the greatest influence I have in my life. My grandmom, and she retired as a school principal, and she's still respected in the community. She taught me the values which I have today, from telling stories, from believing in communities, from believing in true equality, believing in freedom, and to get my chin up and live my life.
Awesome. I think grandmothers are they're always full of those kind of teachable moments. I think
Yeah.
if you ask anybody,
Yeah.
they'll have that kind of story.
And I know you are blessed that you still have your grandparents around you, and you get to meet them. I know you keep sharing stories about the amazing meals you get to have. I can tell you, cherish them, because the most priceless moments will be always with your grandparents.
Yes, mine in particular, because they pretty much raised me when I was a kid.
Yes.
And yeah. So just to, we got a little heavy with, the stories of grandmothers and all these kind of things. So I just wanted to switch it to a bit of a lighthearted curveball at you.
Mm-hmm.
And it is, if you could swap Freaky Friday with any fictional character
Mm-hmm.
for a day,
Mm-hmm.
who would it be, and how would they handle being Santosh Kumar for a day?
Fictional character. I don't know if it's of all the fictional characters, Sheldon Cooper is my favorite fictional character. Gosh, I don't know how to answer that. There are different fictional characters who I like. For example, without being biased, without being gender biased, I think Captain Olivia Benson from Law and Order SVU is a character I relate to a lot. She's kind, she's compassionate, she stands up to a lot of things I believe in. I think that's a character I love. The lead character from the television series Bones, Dr. Temperance Bones, she's a character I relate to. Very statistical, very analytical, very logical. Because there is a side to me which is sometimes very logical.
Okay.
I think I'm very contradictory at times in terms of who I am. Jay Pritchett from Modern Family is a character I would. I think he brings in a world of wisdom, and there is a little bit of youthfulness in him.
Okay.
So I think I probably that's a character I would switch myself off. I think him being Santosh Kumar for a day would be very interesting.
Do you think he would find a Latina wife if he was Santosh Kumar for a day?
I think he would.
You think?
I think yes. I think he would.
And sticking
I think
with
I think the way he looks at life in general. There are moments of wisdom in Modern Family. I think probably one of the most progressive television series to have come out in recent times. I think the best part about that series is it's so very relatable, Vedant. I think there is a modern family in every family today in the world.
ask you another little lighthearted curveball question, which was that if you could invite a historical figure, whether living, dead, what have you, to be a guest on the Between Us podcast, who would you invite?
There are a few. I think growing up in my school days, I've read about Raja Ram Mohan Roy, who actually helped in abolishing the sati system, which was one of the worst of social evils. I would really want to understand how he went about doing that. But I think historical figures, I would say President Kennedy. I would like, because today, when you want to do anything, leaders are always asked this tough question about spending the tax dollars wisely. And in the early 60s, the kind of challenges America was facing, for him to stand out there and make the American people believe, and the world in general to believe, that a man or a woman can go to the moon and back and dream big, I would love to have him on my show.
If you ever do, just ask him about Marilyn Monroe for me and how that happened.
I'm pretty certain there would be some preconditions from him before coming on the show. But yeah, for sure. I think he's one of the finest and the most inspiring leaders in any era. For me, him, President Reagan, and even our Prime Minister inspires me in many ways.
And these are all individuals who understand the power of crafting a narrative.
Absolutely.
You know, JFK with his, man will walk on the moon speech is iconic.
Yeah.
With Reagan talking about, Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
And not just that. I mean, imagine, Vedant, when President Reagan took over, he survived an assassination attempt. But look at what America was going through. You had a Kennedy assassination. You had a Nixon impeachment. You had a absolutely bad economy during President Carter, the Iranian situation. And from there, to actually address a country about hope and optimism, I think that's what President Reagan is more known for. People talk about tearing down the wall, but I think it's giving hope and optimism to a nation which had seen too many things in too short a period of time. I think, I'm sorry I took it, but I think for me, having the period of hope and optimism makes a huge difference.
And do you think that, hope and optimism in storytelling is, of course, very important, but do you feel that it is essential for storytellers to share, I guess, the less sensationalized versions of themselves and just be as real as possible with it?
Absolutely. The success through a good story is authenticity. as authentic you can be, as much true the story would be. I think authenticity is key, not just as a story, Vedant, but as humans. I think being authentic is the key.
Agreed. If it's not authentic, it's going to translate onto the camera, and people will just hear it in your
Yes.
voice.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, looking back on your journey so far that you've had,
Mhm.
I guess, what would you say is, I don't know, what's the most funny moment that you've ever experienced as a podcaster, as someone who's run their own business, as someone who's worked so long, someone who's, had such a interesting life back in Calcutta?
Mhm.
What is the funniest moment? What is a moment that you've just looked at and gone, that was absurd in so many ways?
I think the funniest moment was I was making a presentation to a Fortune 50 company I won't name. And if this episode goes far and wide, the client would know. I went up to the stage and I opened up the slide and I got the client's name wrong because I just copied pasted one part of the slide. And there was a bunch of executives sitting out there. All of them looked at me. They kept a straight face. When I finished the presentation, they all laughed out loud. And I said, "What happened?" And he said, "Just look at the top right of the slide." It was the client was, and the reason why that was funny at that point in time was, uh, I think it had a lot to do with their internal processes, and I just simply copied and pasted it, and it just blew on my face. Another was an email I sent to a client. I was just learning to, really send an email across, and I don't know how to say it. I was to write "Hello, Matt." I wrote "Hell, Matt," and I just sent the mail, and then he responded back, "Sure, Santosh, thank you." And he used to call me Santosh. "Sure, Santosh." Reminded me of my mom. "Hell, Matt, what are you doing? Hell, Matt, do this." And I remember going up to my boss and telling him this is what happened. He burst out laughing and he said, it's chill. But at that point in time, it was, I mean, it might sound funny to you, but when a client writes back to you saying, "Reminded me of my mom," that was, spotting enough for him to come back to me. And I think there have been several funny moments. Like, I've been sitting with a guest recently, and, when you have 2 hours of podcast, and for all the podcasters out there, sometimes you just get into a trance and you just don't realize what's happening. There's times the moments when you just when you see that the guest is really going really, and you just, the moment just freezes at that point in time. There's some funny moments that happen.
Right.
I'm sure you've experienced that too.
Oh yeah, I've experienced quite a few of those moments, especially, the first ever episode of my podcast that I ever did, the Hipster podcast.
Mm-hmm.
It was about marijuana because hipsters are known for being quite liberal with the ganja.
Mm-hmm.
And I brought a bunch of people in to speak about it. And just as we were about to sit down, I realized, oh, wait, these guys could get in trouble if an episode is published where they're talking. So I had all of them use fake names when they were talking, and they came up with some of the most hilarious fake names ever.
Oh, I'm sure they would have. But so just to say, so Vedant has a hipster podcast, a titled Hipster Podcast, and I think he's one of the most authentic persons I've met. And so please go out there and watch out for his podcast. It's really funny.
Thanks, appreciate that.
Yeah, just had to slide that in.
Just had to slide that in. Yeah, because I remember I forgot to do that myself. So obviously, with being a podcaster, being someone in business, someone being at the very top, managing your own teams, you must be cognizant of the fact of the needs of your team.
Mm-hmm.
And in this day and age, one need that is getting more and more press and is being treated as a very real issue that needs to be dealt with is, of course, mental health.
Mm-hmm.
As someone who is going out whenever I'm calling you. Sometimes you're out at meetings, you're traveling here, you're traveling there, you're going between cities, scoring deals, scoring work, scoring guests for your podcast and everything. How do you balance, not just the physical toll that takes, but also the mental and emotional tolls of, just running around and doing so much.
Such a pertinent question and such an important question. And I think, as goes with our podcast between us, the most important story is the story you tell yourself. And I think, and how you tell them. And I think that's what I do, is tell that most important story to me, which is, before you do anything, take care of yourself. Take out time for yourself. Because before being a podcaster, storyteller, and the many different roles we have, there is that one human being, you, taking care of yourself, taking time out for yourself. My mornings are just reserved for me. There are no phone calls, there are no phone messages. I just don't entertain them. Those 2 hours could be for my yoga, for my reading, for my journaling, or for my walk or run. That's just me. At any point in time, I've learned this, Vedant, that sometimes it's important to take time out for yourself, and it's okay to be not okay. When you realize that, when you have that awareness and the alert that, you know what, I think I'm not mentally ready enough today to walk into a studio to do a podcast, or I don't think I'm ready to do this. I don't want to travel today. I just need to be with myself. Taking that time out for yourself is very important for anyone out there.
Agreed.
I think self-care, they are not just buzzwords, and people have been using them that way, but I think taking care of yourself, asking yourself every day, how are you feeling today, is very important. When I wake up in the morning, I ask that. I think I'm not trying to, push between us that way, but I guess the one thing which gets me going when I wake up in the morning is between us. Of all the things I've done, travel, going to school, dropping out of my school, travels and everything else, I think really what has enriched me and enhanced my perspective of my life has been this podcast, meeting different people, their stories. In fact, having had guests who've spoken about mental health has actually forced me to ask this question: are you okay, Santosh? When I walked out of that studio, when I had that first mental health podcast, I said there were so many things I am not tick marked. I should go back and doing it. And I know I didn't shoot another episode for 2 weeks because I just took time out for myself. That was the longest break I took before I shot episodes. And I realized that it's important. I think each one of us, that's one thing we have to ask ourselves. And and as I keep repeating this, it's absolutely okay to be not okay, but it's not okay to push yourself to believing that you're okay.
Right.
That's, yeah.
Awesome. And, these are issues that, of course, all of us, I'm sure, if we had a magic wand or a genie in a bottle, we'd love to wish those kinds of problems away. So I'm just curious, if there was one social issue or one, pressing need for humanity that you could solve with a flick of your wrist, what would you solve, and why that one specifically?
I think, I don't know whether it's so with the one, I wish I could, is the meaning of freedom. I think I wish all of us were free to the truest sense, considering what's going on in Gaza right now. I don't want to get into who's wrong, who's right. I mean, anybody with the right sense will know that. But just the freedom to be, I wish I could I wish I could create something or do something for people to be who they are. And I think people are not today.
Right.
Who they want to be. So I wish I could do that. That's one thing. Just be who you are. Just do what you want. It doesn't matter about your orientation, about your identity. Just people could be just who they are. I wish they could. And that holds true for everyone, even the leaders out there. I think some of them are not who they are. I wish just people could be themselves. I wish I could do that.
So just kind of building on this question that I asked you, you said that, maybe not a wand or a genie, but if maybe, let's say, let me put it a different way. If you had a superpower that you could actually use to realize this dream of solving this one issue of, freedom for everybody,
Mhm.
what would that one superpower be?
I think be a convincing storyteller, Vedant. I wish I could tell stories convincingly enough for people to realize that they can be free. And sometimes it is we who hold us back. I hope I had this magical skill of telling a very convincing, beautiful story to everyone, and they just become free.
Then I know the role model for your life, Professor X from
Yes,
X-Men.
yes,
Because that guy can convince you to do anything.
absolutely.
All he has to do is say one word.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's so very true.
And, of course, with the way things are going in the world, one topic that is getting a lot of press, it's kind of buried now, but it's going to come in a big way, I think, later on down the line, is AI.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we can have an episode like this and not talk about AI,
Mm-hmm.
just because you have storytellers who are turning to AI. In fact, I read this crazy story about a guy who he wanted to write a children's book essentially, and he used various AI tools to not only write but illustrate and self-publish a children's book. And I think, he had at least some level of ethical, moral to himself, where I think he came out and said that it is an AI generated book, but he just got absolutely slammed on social media for people like, you've literally done nothing. You've just, you pressed some keys and literally you've generated a book that you didn't write. That is probably based on that is probably inspired from the work of another author. The illustrations are probably inspired by some artist. And, you're essentially taking up that space. What do you think about how AI will affect storytelling? And how do you feel AI maybe should be implemented in terms of augmenting storytelling rather than being this more destructive force?
I think you actually answered the question. Augmenting, enhancing. I think technology should always be seen as a catalyst or a tool to solve a problem or give a solution. The the challenge happens when we look at technology as the end solution. It's just a catalyst. I guess we can use any and every form of technology, whether it's robotics, whether it's Internet of Things, AI, as long as we use them to enhance our skills, it's great. If we and I hope good sense will prevail where we take the best of the technology to make our lives easier than use that technology to, you know, you use that technology to be the change itself. Right. So I think that's where I would say at this point in time. I am a strong believer that technology helps us enhance. You cannot stop AI from coming into your life. It's already there. If you look at healthcare, it's brought about so many changes in a big way. Look at the surgeries which are happening. Look at the reach it can help to reach out to the remotest of people. AI is being used to help improve mental health. There are so many things which are being done. If we look at technology to enhance our lives, to better our lives, it'll go that way. If we are going to say that AI is going to be our life, it's going to destroy us. It's as simple as that. I think if we can use technology to its true sense, you can use technology beautifully to help improve your storytelling skills. It can help you think beyond what you've been traditionally thinking. But if you're going to use that to tell a story, there is a problem. For every one example you give, there would be many more examples where people will actually use technology to enhance and improve their creative skills. It's how we look at it, right?
I guess even, before AI became a thing, it was with the democratization of the internet and everything like that. I feel like people are, and in the film world, because both of us are part of the same film club, even with film, with CGI, for example, I remember back when I was a kid watching movies and thinking, wow, they've really done something special. And now it's kind of like everybody's uh, just let's just use green screen. Let's just do everything in post. Like just have the actor come in, put on a mocap suit, just do his lines, and we'll give him, we'll pay him. And I feel like that is kind of the root problem of why people have so much fear over AI. That people are going to, it is essentially going to be a democratization of all kinds of talent in a way.
I'll tell you this. We have the best example in our country. Ramayan, which came out in the 80s, it didn't have great technology, but even when it came back during the COVID time, people loved it. The ratings were through the roof. And the modern day Ramayans, which come out on different channels, they have better technology. I think at the end of the day, as I said, a good story, a story is a story. When well told, it'll always be received. We've seen some really bad, I don't know how to say that, really bad Transformer movies with the best of CGIs and technologies. I don't know if you're a Transformer fan, but
of the cartoon, yes.
So I think if we use technology judiciously in the way it should be, because at the end of the day, the soul is the story itself. If you don't have a great story, no technology can help you.
We did sort of touch upon books. So another little fun curveball to throw at you. What are your top 3 book recommendations for your listeners?
Okay, so I'll probably break this up. One of my absolute favorite book of all time is A Team of Rivals by Goodwin. And I think it's about President Lincoln and his cabinets. And how he had diverse group of people in his cabinet, and how those were the Lincoln presidency days. One of the best written books on leadership and life during the pandemic. And I'm really sorry, an apology to all of those Robin Sharma fans. I got introduced to him only during the pandemic. I've heard about him, but I've never read his book. The 5 a.m. Club is one of the best written books to me of all times when it comes to self-help. One of my favorite books. In recent times, Green Lights by a semi-autobiographical book by Matthew McConaughey. I think that book really is one of the well-written books. I think if you would ask me, for me, what is a good book, or what is a favorite book? I think something which I can connect to, I can relate to, is what I love reading books like those. I love reading historical books like, The Team of Rivals. So, these 3 books right now at the top of my bookshelf.
Brilliant. And, I just want to kind of rewind a little bit to slightly earlier in the episode where I asked you if you could go back in time, what advice would you give to your past self? I want to kind of flip that, and I want to ask if you could go in a time machine and go forward in time to, however long into the future, what advice would you want to get from your future self? Or what advice do you think your future self would tell you?
Well, my future self will tell me that, listen, you are amongst the most influential storytellers of your time, and your stories have impacted many lives. So whatever challenges you face today, it's all going to be great. You have married the love of your life. You are happy. You have a great family. And everything has turned out to be great. And everything will always turn out to be great. So just keep going. And that's what my future self will tell me. And to just live in the moment and appreciate things around you, and be grateful for everything, all of the experiences you have.
Awesome. So this is gonna be the main kind of body of the podcast before we move into your other 3 segments. So I want to end it with a little bit more of the curveballs, because I feel like we're getting some good stuff out of you.
Okay.
If you could collaborate with any entrepreneur, whether dead or alive, what would you guys collaborate on? What would you want to build out of this collaboration?
I don't know what I would build out of the collaboration, but I think I would have loved to collaborate with Steve Jobs. He's one person I've always admired for his dedication, focus, but I think most importantly, his design sense. We would have probably created something very, very interesting together. I don't know what it is, but maybe something around telling stories. Something around that. But I guess, yeah.
Yes. The I storyteller.
Yes, I storyteller. There you go.
If you could write a letter to your future self, what would you want to say to yourself?
To my future self, I would say that wherever you are at this point in time is because I have slogged my ass off to be where you are today. I've worked very, very hard. So you bloody well take care of where you are today because, I've given everything to be where you are today.
So, last two questions.
Mm-hmm.
First one, what's next for Santosh Kumar in the Between Us podcast?
Mm-hmm. I think there are two questions in that. What's next for Santosh Kumar is to be a better version. Sounds cliche, but I want to really improve a lot of aspects of my life, paying more attention to myself, to the environment around me, being more aware. I have certain personal goals I would like to meet, which is more to do with my habits. I wish I can improve that. As far as Between Us is concerned, I think Between Us will continue to tell stories. And I hope these stories are from the length and breadth of India and maybe take these stories across the globe because as a country, we have a rich civilization. There are many stories of India which is still not told to the world. I would love to tell those stories.
Awesome. And lastly, where can your listeners hear more about you? Or where can they check you out?
That part of my life will be kept absolutely private for the longest time. You can check out Between Us on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple. But and I think I would say this: I tell stories which matter to me. So if I'm talking about climate, or I'm talking about gender, I'm talking about identity, I'm talking about social issues, they are a part of me. So there's a little bit of me in every of the episodes and every of the stories out there. So that's the best way to look at me.
Fantastic. So, Santosh, we're now going to move into the last three sections of your podcast.
Mm-hmm.
What's brewing, what matters, and of course, the rapid fire.
Okay.
So, Santosh, let's dive into what's brewing.
Okay.
And it's not just the coffee.
Mm-hmm.
How has your podcast evolved, would you say, since you started all the way back when?
I think I am getting a hang of how stories should be told. I think I'm just improving myself as a podcast host. As far as I think evolution is concerned, we're getting amazing storytellers with every new story. I think we are still scratching the bits, but I think there's a I think we're telling better stories. We're telling more bold stories, probably.
Awesome.
I think that's where it is.
How do you stay motivated and inspired to produce content regularly?
Like I said, I think this is the closest to what I have been as a professional, with due respect to every other job I have done. I think this is something which I feel very close to my heart. So I think the stories that I tell, when I wake up every morning, Vedant, I look forward to telling stories, not necessarily going to a studio and recording something, but just going out there and meeting people, writing interesting stories. I think that keeps me motivated. I look forward to every morning doing something new, creating something new.
Favorite pastime?
Favorite pastime? I think cooking. I think I just love to cook. I enjoy cooking.
Any cuisines in particular?
Pasta is my all-time favorite. Not much of effort required out there. I think, yeah, pastas. I don't drink, but I love to make cocktails.
Okay.
So I think that's something which I do when I have friends over. I took a cocktail class in Atlanta that still holds me in good stead.
There is a mixology class at KMC.
Well, let's go together then, Vedant. Let's do it. Between one podcast host to the other.
Yes, just over drinks, pretty much.
Yes. I'll just give you company. That's all I can say, but just being
Well,
there.
it's more about the making than
Yeah,
everything
exactly.
else. What did you want to be when you were a kid?
I think the answer would be the same like everyone else. I wanted to be a lot of things when I was growing up. When I would watch a movie, I would want to be a police officer. For the longest time, I wanted to be a fireman. I don't know, for the love of God, why. I mean, they do a great job, but I would be that. I wanted to be a pilot, but I think somewhere I wanted to tell stories. Maybe I was not aware of it. But I had this habit. I would be sitting in my school bus and telling stories, just cooking up stories, man. Something or the other, I would just say. And my friends would say, where do you pull this off from? And I would always ask them, did you enjoy it? Yes, that's all that matters. So yeah, I guess so.
I used to want to be a fireman too. Then I saw Dante's Peak, and I did not want to be a fireman anymore.
Well, I think we don't hear too many stories of firemen from here.
Exactly.
But having been lived in the United States, I mean, what they go through is amazing. I mean, they're really superheroes.
Oh, they very much so.
Yeah.
Like the fact that they run into a burning building, that's superhero material right there.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What is your biggest fear?
Losing people who are very close to me, although you know that it's inevitable. Yes. I think I've lost, when I lost my grandma, I think that is something which is, I've still not gotten over it. It's been many, many years. She wanted me to be an author, write my first book, as I'm rewriting my first draft all over again for the last 3 years. Every time I write, the first line I write is, "This is to you, Grandma." And I think losing people, the very thought of losing people who matter to me the most, that's the greatest fear I have.
Well, I'm sure she'd be very proud once the book is published.
Yeah. And I know she's watching over me every single day. Yeah, I mean, I guess, I wish she was around.
We all wish that
Yeah.
grandparents to stick around.
Mm-hmm. She would have been 90 probably. Yeah.
And still kicking.
Oh, believe me, till the last day. I think my last memory of her was I had gone to visit her and I spent an entire month with her. We did a lot of things together. And the following year, 6 months down the line, I had some exams and she passed away. So my last memory of my grandma was the smiling, fun gammy, I would say, I had. She was, oh boy, she taught me how to write stories, how to speak, she used to always tell me how my first date should be and how I should dress up. Oh boy. Yeah, I do miss her a lot.
Yeah, I can just imagine Gami Kumar just on a bike, just driving through everywhere.
Yes, 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 yes. The bravest human I've known.
Awesome. And just kind of building on that, obviously your grandmother was someone I'm sure you confided in.
Mm-hmm.
But nowadays, who is someone that you talk to when you feel stuck in any way?
Oh, hands down, my mama. She's my greatest friend, philosopher. She helps me write captions on Instagram. She gives me tips before I walk into a podcast. She is the most well-read person I know in this world, the most progressive human being I've met. And I think, she is. She absolutely is.
Which agency did she work for?
She did not work for any agency.
Oh.
She just, she dropped out of high school because she fell in love with my dad, a much older man, and she fought to get married. And I was born almost immediately. And she said, I'm just going to take care of my child, despite the fact that my grandmom and my dad told her, we'll all be here to support you, finish your education. She said, no, this is it. But I think she's so well-read about everything around. She's probably the most well-read person I know without going to an Ivy League school or so. She picks up things very fast. She still gives me ideas. And believe it or not, my team came up and said, the place where you're sitting, it'll be nice to have her there as the host. I said, no way I'll get her there. No way. Not even on my 1,000th episode. No. There would be a lot of stories which would come out. I wouldn't want to them.
Well, I mean, just, based on the fact that you told me she helps you with your captions.
Yes.
I'd have assumed, just seeing the captions myself on your Instagram and whatnot, I would have assumed she'd had a stint in some kind of ad agency or PR agency.
She's a walking advertisement. I can't tell you much more than that. Oh boy, and she's a huge fan of Ryan Gosling. Uh, I think she watched Barbie for that reason too. So
I'm sure it brought back memories of when she was playing with her own Ken doll.
yes, absolutely, absolutely, yeah. She's simply awesome. She knows everyone in the studio I work with. She knows you by name. She knows Moinak because according to my mom, she's a fellow Bengali. He's a fellow Bengali, so he remembers a mode. We are from Kerala, so I told her Rohit is also from Kerala. So, there are many things. She knows about my team. She knows about the episode which is happening right now. And I know when I walk out of the studio, she'll call me and she'll say, how did it go? Yeah, yes, absolutely.
Hopefully, just all good things.
Yes. I think she's, for both me and my brother, both are parents. They've been parents in the true sense. And I have, they have just grown with us. And it's normally the other way, but they've literally grown with us. And because my mom became a mom at the age of 20. So, that was too early to be a mom at that time. And I think she keeps telling me and my brother, I've just grown with the two of you. So,
best perspective on things.
Yes, absolutely.
So we'll move into the second section.
Mm-hmm.
What matters?
Mm-hmm.
Climate change. You mentioned about how climate justice, economic justice,
Mm-hmm.
how they don't necessarily equal the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to be a superhero that fought for the climate, a Captain Planet, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
what would the villain look like?
I think all of the political leaders today, cumulatively, they're all the villains in the game, because and nothing personal about it. I'm sorry, but what I feel that they could do a lot more than they are doing right now. I think if you ask me, every one of us would be villains out there, trying to we. I think it's a problem that needs to be solved collectively. Our leaders, the citizens, everyone needs to come. And I think we don't do enough. I mean, I think Captain Planet. That's a nice name, by the way. Got a great.
It's a cartoon.
Yeah. So I think it would be basically Captain Planet against the whole world. I mean, to me, yes, each one of us are responsible for where the planet is today in our own ways.
And finally, in your opinion, what's the most promising solution for combating climate change?
I think for each one of us to live and lead a sustainable life. You don't have to do something dramatic. Basic things. Don't leave your tap open. Switch off the lights. Switch to a more healthier lifestyle. All of those together, small bits, will help you combat this. It's a long march, but I think it's worth it.
Awesome. Well, Santosh, we're at the final section. It has been a long episode, but it has been so enriching to listen to you. So sadly, this section is the one where you're going to have to give one word or one phrase answers.
Mm-hmm.
But let's see if we can get through this and breeze through it.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it.
And I sadly do not have a hamper for you at the end of it. I'm sorry.
Oh. That's the Between Us tradition.
Would you say that you are an early bird or a night owl?
Early bird.
Early bird. Talking over coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Bookworm session or a movie marathon?
Both.
Maybe a book about movies or a movie about books.
Absolutely.
That would be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Would you rather explore the great outdoors or have a cozy day in?
It all depends on how I feel at that point, but honestly, it'll be outdoors if I were to make a choice. Yeah.
Introvert or extrovert?
Introvertly extrovert, if there's a word for that.
Handwritten notes to yourself or digital reminders on your phone?
Handwritten notes all the time.
Home cooking or dining out?
Home cooking.
Would you rather work out solo or be a part of a group?
Part of a group, always.
Santosh at Zumba, I can totally see it.
Oh.
Jazz or rock?
Jazz.
Yes, that is the correct answer. On social media, would you rather be scrolling or would you rather be posting?
Scrolling if I had a choice. Absolutely. I'm just forced to do it because I run a podcast now. That's it.
And lastly, when you're traveling,
Mhm.
are you someone who travels with a planned itinerary, or do you like to fly by the seat of your pants and just go for it?
I wish I could do the latter, but because of the nature of my work, I can't. But if it's a personal holiday, yes.
Awesome. And with that, Santosh, we have reached the end of this episode, your 25th episode of the Between Us podcast. Thank you for letting me host the episode. And thank you for being such a lively guest. It was awesome. And I don't know, maybe someday we could do this again on my podcast.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it, but I just want to take a few seconds to say this. It's been an absolute pleasure collaborating with Manic Pod, especially the way we started off. Thank you to each and every member who's really. I record at different cities sometimes, but this is home. Thank you. A big thank you to the Manic Pod team. Great coffee, and I mean, I swear by it. Great hosts, all of you are. I, for once, never feel that this is external to Between Us. This is a part of Between Us, and I really, really mean it when I say, I was sharing this with Rohit, our sound engineer, that maybe we'll have a recording of the 100th episode here, and I think it's been nothing but a blessing to have been collaborating with you. And I say that from the heart, and a great bunch of team. I want to thank all our audiences to have heard or listened to the podcast. We've got great stories coming ahead, but thank you for being a great support. Thank you to you for agreeing to be the host on this. And, we always say this. I wrap up every episode by saying stay safe and stay healthy. So everyone out there, please stay safe and stay healthy. And just be kind to one another.
Indeed. And onwards to the next 25.
Thank you. Yes. Amen to that.
Hi Santosh, a big hello to you and your team. At the outset, I would like to thank all of you for having me as one of your guests on Between Us. And I really had a great time, and it was a wonderful conversation that we had. I would also like to congratulate all of you for the wonderful achievements and milestones and the prizes that you have received on different platforms. As I'm made to understand that today you are on the other side of the table. So my question for you is that tell me one habit of yours that you have inculcated or you have developed consciously after having met all your wonderful guests, and if at all there's any habit that you decided that you need to stop it or discontinue it in order to help your own growth and progress. Thank you so much and all the best.
Thank you so much, Doc. Where should I begin? I still remember the day I visited you at the ITC lobby in Parel by your hospital. It was really kind of you to have come over and heard me out, and you asked me a few questions, and I hopefully answered them correctly because you agreed to come on the show then and there. And ever since then, I've gotten to know you as a friend, as a guide. So lots of love to the entire Sadbhai family. To answer your question, well, I don't know about the habit, but I can tell you one thing. Meeting people, all of these storytellers on Between Us, has really, really helped me explore myself deeply, getting to know who I am. And I think I would say the one thing I've learned is to stand up and say yes when I need to say yes, and say no when I need to say no. And I think I have also, one of the things which I've never done in my life, while I keep sharing that with everybody else, is somewhere down the line, I've never really drawn a boundary for myself. And I think this experience with Between Us has really helped me do that. And otherwise, I think when it comes to habits, it keeps evolving. Something which is very important today may not be as important tomorrow. But yes, standing up for myself, saying yes when I need to say yes, no when I need to say no, learning to draw boundaries, some of those things which you hear from people, but I've started to implement them now. So yes, so that's my response. So lots of love, Doc. See you soon.
Hi Santosh, many congratulations to you and the team for reaching this important milestone. I wish you more and more success in creating these inner journeys of people in the face of struggles and setbacks. What is so unique about your way of narration is that one is able to see the innermost dialogue, what was going on inside a person when they were faced with that challenge, and then how did they found their way back towards what was most meaningful for them. What's even more unique is that on face of it, these sounds like stories that it can happen to anybody. But what is very unique is that the response and how they found their way back is far from ordinary. I always smile to myself when I hear you say, Shuru se shuru karte hain, let's start from the beginning. So, my question to Santosh Kumar is going to be, if Santosh was to start from the beginning, where would he begin with and what would that story look like?
Hey Gitika, thank you so much. You have always been a great support system. We have done 2 podcasts now, one a solo with you and then the one with Aditi. And both of them have been enriching experiences. If Santosh Kumar were to begin from the very beginning, इसका जवाब मैं कैसे दूँ? मैं सिर्फ ये कह सकता हूँ कि whatever I am today is an accumulation of all the experiences I have gathered from my childhood. मैं बचपन में अपने नानी के घर बड़ा हुआ था और उनसे कहानियाँ सुन के बड़ा हुआ. And I think those stories really helped me become who I am today. And in some form or shape, whether I was a sales professional or as an entrepreneur, I always told stories. I wouldn't have anything any different. I think wherever I am today is because of all of those experiences. But yes, I think I would have always been telling stories in some form or shape. And I hope I can continue to tell stories all through. Between Us, for me, is not just a podcast. Between Us is a journey to finding myself, just as it is a journey for all of those storytellers who have come on our show. I think in many ways, when they have been sharing their stories, I felt that they all found a safe space in our podcast. So I hope I can continue to do that. And I hope this answers your question in the best of my abilities. So thank you for helping me become a better storyteller. Lots and lots of love, and I'll see you soon on our podcast.
Hi Santosh, congratulations to you and to Team Between Us on completing your 25th Silver Jubilee episode. I hope it turns into gold, diamond, platinum very soon, and I am blessed to be a part of your journey. My question to you is, what will you tell a budding podcaster out there? What can he or she learn from the best? My best wishes to you and the team. Continue to grow, continue to inspire. All the best and God bless. Take care.
Rupa, thank you so very much for being such an outstanding support system for Between Us. You were one of our earliest guests, and if I remember correctly, you were the first video podcast we had. And to answer your question, I think there is no one who's best in podcasting. It's everyone. We all evolve, we all grow. So I can only share my experiences with people who want to podcast, and that is staying true to yourself, being authentic, telling the story as it is. I think that's the only piece of advice or experience I can share. So as long as we stay true to the story, we are authentic, I think we all can grow on to be influential, impactful podcasters. So thank you for all the wishes, and as I promised you, we will hit the 1,000th episode and you are going to be the guest.
Hi Santosh, congratulations for completed 25th episode of Between Us. And Between Us is the platform जहाँ पे एक आम इंसान की ज़िंदगी के बारे में, उसके एक्सपीरियंस के बारे में, उसके अचीवमेंट्स और उसके स्ट्रगल के बारे में एक स्टोरी बताई जा रही है और लोगों को उससे रूबरू करा जा रहा है. देयर आर डिफरेंट प्लेटफॉर्म पॉडकास्ट जहाँ पे सिर्फ इन्फ्लुएंसर्स को और सेलिब्रिटीज़ की बात सुनी जाती है और बताया जाता है. तो दैट इज़ वन. एंड आई डोंट हैव एनी क्वेश्चन संतोष आपके लिए, जस्ट अ रिक्वेस्ट कि आप इसी मुहिम को इसी तरह चलाते रहें और लोगों को मोटिवेट करते रहें, इंकरेज करते रहें उनकी लाइफ के बारे में, उनके गोल्स के बारे में, और जो जिसको जैसा ही करना है, जो डायरेक्शन अच्छी डायरेक्शन मिल सके आपके पॉडकास्ट के थ्रू, आपके स्टोरीज के थ्रू. थैंक यू सो मच एंड चीयर्स.
You have been an inspiration for a lot of people. Your personal story has touched not just me personally and other people, even the people in the studio when we were recording the podcast. We saw everyone being so emotional during the conversation. Your journey from where you were to where you are is something which every human being out there should hear, listen, and implement in their life. The never say die attitude. And I know you have not asked me any question, but I promise you that I will continue to have guests, storytellers who are actually making a difference on the ground. And on a lighter note, जैसे मैंने आपको promise किया था, गुड़गांव में शिफ्ट होते ही आपके जिम में साइन अप करना है. There is no question about it. Thank you again for being on the show. Thank you for continuing to support Between Us. And lots of love.
It's been absolutely lovely working with Between Us, to take the stories forward, to take all the meaningful conversations with such great guests, and all their journeys forward has been really wholesome. Working with Santosh has been such a learning journey, and to help him with his mission to take all of these journeys forward in such a way that it makes an impact has just been really wholesome, which is also like a favorite word. And a question that I would like to ask Santosh would be, what is that one thing that he really wants to achieve by the end of, say 50 episodes? And, where does he see the conversations going? And what is the big impact that he really wants to make?
Hi Tanvi, thank you for being a part of the Between Us journey as a strategy consultant, and thank you for continuing to work with us. To answer your question, 50 episodes तो कुछ भी नहीं है यार, हम तो 1000, 2000 की बात करते हैं, 5000 की बात करते हैं. But to answer your question, I think two things. One, we will continue to tell stories. There is no two thoughts about it. How we tell those stories will change over time depending on how technology evolves. But the soul will always be the human experiences and human stories. What kind of impact I want to make? अगर हमारी कहानी सुनकर किसी के लाइफ में थोड़ा सा भी चेंज आता है, they can bring about even a small change, and that change could impact them and many people around them. I think our job has been accomplished. Between Us, as you know, is about the inner stories, the stories behind the stories. I'm moving to Delhi, so we'll have many such conversations. Take care.
Say Between Us family, how are you doing? Hope you're all doing great. I met Santosh ji first at GPI Summit last year at New Delhi, and it was great to know about Between Us platform. What is the USP of Between Us is that Santosh ji's conversational style is indeed a beautiful blend of poise, grace, and research-driven approach. And Santosh ji, I have a question for you. Like, what, according to you, is the impact of telling stories in Indian languages on the life of common Bharatiya? Thank you. Jai Hind.
Namaste, Jasaswini ji. It has been a pleasure interacting with you, not just at GPI in New Delhi last year, but in general. Especially your love for Bharat, your love for Bharat ki kahaniyan, your love for our culture, and it has only enhanced and enriched me as a person. Regional languages में story बोलना important है so that people can connect as per their culture. But really what is important is the story itself. As I always say, stories are important, stories are powerful, stories shape who we are, and the language in which we tell the story to ourselves is not really English, Hindi, Bengali, or any of the languages. It's our innermost emotion. It's our core emotion. And thank you for being such a valuable audience for Between Us, and a great cheerleader.
Hi Santosh, congratulations on completing 25 episodes of your podcast. As a producer, I have seen your journey from episode 1 to episode 25, and I know that you've learned a lot of things on the way. But I feel a part of becoming a master of a skill is understanding the things that you don't know yet. And for that reason, I don't want to ask you about the things that you've learned in the past 25 episodes. I want to know what are the things you're planning to focus on in the next 25 episodes that you're going to do. Thank you.
Arnav, thank you for first of all being a part of Between Us. We had discussed about how you can be on the other side as a host, and we did that. I think it was the 20th episode where we did that. We are all evolving every single day. Every time I wrap up a podcast episode, I spend some time with myself, asking where I could have improved, what could I have done different. You always record an episode and now you're a podcaster yourself. I keep asking myself, what is it that I should do differently every time a new episode is being shot? And the answer to that question is, my mom told me this: you don't do anything differently. You just add on to your personality. To the question about what are the other aspects I can improve is, I think with every story I tell, I would like to be deeply involved in the story itself. As I always say, stories are powerful, stories are personal, and the most important story is the story we tell ourselves.
Hey Santosh, congratulations on completing 25 episodes. I don't know if you know this, but Between Us was the first project that I was assigned after joining ManicPod, and it goes without saying that it will always hold a very special place in my heart. I'm very sure this is just the beginning, so all the best for all the future episodes to come. If I had to throw in a very quick question, then that would be, what was your favorite episode out of all the 25 that you've done? For me personally, it was the Halloween episode because it was very fun to work on, it was challenging at the same time, but I was just curious to know which one was yours.
Moinak, my fellow Bengali friend, the master technician who actually makes all those lovely sound more effective and powerful. It has been my absolute pleasure working with ManicPod Studios, working with you, Rohit, Arnav, and the rest of Vedant, and Kinan when we started off with. So all of you guys have been wonderful. This podcast, this journey is basically a manifestation of my dreams. That first episode about manifestation, that will always be my favorite episode. Thanks a lot, Moinak. Thank you for the wonderful work you did on the Valentine's Day episode, on the Halloween episode, and for everything else. Lots and lots of love.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Between Us podcast. This podcast was recorded at ManicPod Studios in Chembur, Mumbai. Our sound engineer is Moinak Chakraborty, and our producers are Arnav Dogra and Santosh Kumar. The video was processed at Viewfinder's Edit. The Between Us podcast uploads episodes weekly, and we'll see you next time.